And Gerry McGowan, who you saw in that report, is the MD of CBD Energy, and I spoke to him a short time ago. Gerry McGowan, welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Diggy.
Now, this new joint venture gives you access to funding and equipment, but what does it give your Chinese partners? Because Australia must be quite a small market for them.
Well, it gives our Chinese partners a window to the rest of the world. They're going to use, Australia as the launch pad for their international ambitions.
AusChina wants a third of the Australian renewable energy market over the next 10 years. I noticed there was a question mark after that in your press release. That's, in your words, that's $3 billion worth of wind and solar power plants in 3 years and $6 billion over 8. What sort of conditions in Australia are you assuming to achieve this?
Well, we're assuming that the AusChina joint venture will bring the cost of renewables down to a level where we'll be competitive with traditional power sources in Australia.
But presumably those power sources are currently quite a long way apart. I mean, I notice you quote coal-fired power costs at around $45 per megawatt hours and wind power now at 95 or 70 to 85 if you include the renewable energy certificates. That's a long way apart, isn't it?
Well, 75 to 95 isn't a long way apart, and these guys are bringing down the cost of renewables at a dramatic rate. When you look at solar, it's come down about 40% in the last few years. So we expect exactly the same thing to happen with wind, and we think we're going to be cost competitive in a very short space of time. What
about the policy changes that have happened in Australia over the last few months?
Well, it depends on which ones you're talking about, Tiki, but I think we've had 22 policy changes over the last 6 months in Australia. And, it's a big disincentive to renewables in this country. If you're talking about carbon taxes and things like that, I'm not sure that I'm a great fan of a carbon tax. I'm not sure that we want to add additional impost to industry generally and consumers generally. But what I do want is, very clear targets from the government, and then I want government to get out of the way and let the industry deliver the outcome that they desire.
That's very interesting. I would have expected you to be broadly supportive of a carbon tax.
Well, it's a tax, and someone's got to eventually pay it. And I'm not certain that the renewable industry should be seeking such a tax. I think what we want is very clear policy, very clear direction. We are making 25-year commitments in terms of investment, and we want just clarity, and then we want government to get out of the way and let industry deliver.
Do you think China specifically and your Chinese partners see this issue as an area of sovereign risk?
Well, absolutely they do, but Chinese think long, and at CBD we think long. So, we're looking at not 1 or 2 year parameters, we're looking at 10, 20 and 30 year parameters.
How much, moving to jobs and manufacturing, how much manufacturing for these projects will need to be done on the ground here in Australia, and how much will be done in China?
Well, initially, not a lot, and Australian governments generally have been, very lax in ensuring that initiatives that they set in place create jobs in Australia. However, what we are doing with our partners is that we will establish a manufacturing of PV base in Australia, and we're looking to manufacture certain components of our wind business, domestically.
Does it worry you that the ongoing talk about skill shortage and what that will do for the costs, wages, input costs?
Well, once again, I think it's an impost on industry to ensure that we do incentivise TAFE colleges and educational institutions to, incentivise students in the directions that we need them to be in to create a renewable business in Australia.
Mm. Your renewable energy that you produce, of course, won't be baseload power. How does that affect the price you get?
Well, over time it could be baseload power. Who says that renewable can't deliver baseload power? And
well, I do at the moment, because I haven't seen any demonstration that can happen.
Well, what you're seeing in China is that they're going to build 150,000 megawatts of wind over the next 8 years. So Australia is a 50,000 megawatt market. So I'm not saying that we can't build baseload power, but are we going to replace coal and gas in the immediate future? The answer is no. But, I think over time that we can build our capacity quite dramatically. I mean, we're working on a project at the moment with Hydro Tasmania on King Island to lift their renewable penetration to about 85% of their base capacity.
I noticed that some of your new projects may include energy storage opportunities. That presumably is a nirvana in the clean energy area, isn't it?
It is, and technology is going to move very rapidly in renewable energy over the next 10 years. It's no different to other technology industries.
And finally, CBD Energy, I think, has about a 24%